So today is Thursday, January 21st, and today we're going to be talking about value. So why does something have value and why are some things worth more than others? Go ahead and pause the video so that you can answer these questions and resume when you have done. So the first thing we're going to do today is watch a quick recap video of what we talked about yesterday.
We have scarcity and we have unlimited wants and needs, but we have limited resources. We have to make trade-offs. We have to make decisions in life. Now, wants and needs, I've already referenced this a couple times, but a want is something that you just want to buy or purchase or do, but you don't really need it to survive. A need is something that you have to purchase, you have to do to be able to survive. Now, it's easy to break this down between like a want being, oh, I want to go to the mall and hang out with friends and buy all these clothes that are from Lululemon. That would be a want. You don't need to buy from Lululemon. Need, however, would be like drinking water or eating food. Now, even food can get categorized in a want section depending on what type of food. Do you need to go to Chipotle or do you more want to go to Chipotle? There's different types of food that can go into different categories depending on what you are doing. Now, we're not going to get into all the nitty gritty there. That's not the point of this video. But the point you need to understand is with unlimited wants and needs and limited resources, scarcity is going to happen. And that will cause us to make trade-offs.
All right, so does something have value? Why does something have value? And why are some things worth more than others? Well, the definition of value refers to worth that can be expressed in dollars and cents. So in the real world, you could say that something has value, that friendship has value, for example, love has value, and that's all well and good. But in economics, we're talking about anything that can be that has worth that can be expressed in dollars and cents. So where do we go from here? Well, first we have to talk about the paradox of value. And the paradox of value is a situation where the essentials, such as food and water, have little value, whereas some non-necessities, such as diamonds, have a much higher value. And so scarcity is one thing that will play into value. So think about this. If I tell you, if I ask you what is more valuable, water or diamonds? Well, obviously, you would say that diamonds have more value. It's not a trick question. If I ask you, I have this water bottle or I have this diamond, which would you rather have? You would obviously say that you'd rather have the diamond because you know that it's worth more. Yet, if I were to say, okay, well, what about this water if you're dying of thirst in the desert? Well, you might have a different answer because the water has immediate value for you. And so you can say that water has more value because it's required for survival, but we know that's not actually the case. What's actually the case is that the diamond has more value. So at the end of the day, scarcity is one thing that will play into value. The fact that water is maybe more abundant here in Greenville, South Carolina, than it might be, for example, in a desert somewhere means that water has more value in that desert because it's scarcity. And so the fact that water is essential for life is obviously important, and that's why it creates this paradox. But we know that water is so abundant that we don't give it the same amount of value as we do with something like diamonds, which is why if I asked you, which would you rather have, this diamond or this bottle of water, you would be foolish to say that you would rather have the water than the diamonds, because obviously the diamonds is worth a lot more than the water. Okay, so that's one part. One part of this is scarcity, and that is, we've talked about that. That is the condition that results from us not having enough resources to fulfill all of our wants and needs. So the other thing that plays into value is going to be utility. For something to have value, it also must have utility. The capacity to be useful and to provide satisfaction is utility. So for example, one person may get great satisfaction from a home computer, while another will get little, if any. So think about this. I could paint a sunset, for example. And if I paint this sunset, well, you might say, well, Mr. Thrall, that's not very good. Okay, well, this sunset painting, this is an original Thrall. This obviously has scarcity. It's the only one. This is the only time I've ever painted a sunset. And so there's scarcity of this sunset, but it doesn't have value. It's not just the scarcity, because you say, well, Mr. Paul, that doesn't really look like a sunset. It doesn't look very good at all. You don't know how to blend your colors, anything like that. And this picture just doesn't look very good. So therefore, it doesn't have utility. It's not going to create interest for anybody. Now, if all of a sudden nobody likes diamonds and diamonds don't seem, they're not pretty and they're not shiny, and all of a sudden people decide they don't want them, well, now diamonds wouldn't have any value either, right? Because they would lose their utility. So water obviously has a tremendous amount of utility, but no scarcity, and therefore not much value to water. And diamonds have scarcity, which is that they're rare, and utility, which is that people like them. They provide satisfaction. It doesn't have to be usefulness. It could just be satisfaction instead. In order for something to have value, it must be scarce and have utility. So we need both of those things. So what happens if consumers aren't willing to pay the cost of production of an item? Well, if a consumer isn't willing to pay the cost of production for an item, then that thing will stop being produced. Okay, you could have a situation maybe where there's a company that produces something, maybe, I don't know, VCRs, right? Company produces VCRs, and they could produce VCRs at a relatively low cost, but all of a sudden people will stop. They're not willing to pay the cost of VCRs anymore, because not only do they have DVD players and Blu-rays, and mostly people are just streaming things now. And so the VCR is a relic of the past. And because people have stopped being willing to pay for it, the producers will stop producing those VCRs. Some examples of things that have value: really anything that you can write that has worth that can be expressed in dollars and cents. Okay, so your sweatshirt has value, your house has value, your car has value. The bottle of water that I said has a lot less value than the diamonds, guess what? That has value as well. Okay, so we're just talking about things that can be expressed in worth, expressed in dollars and cents. Okay, so every society must ask three important questions. These are the three fundamental sort of questions when you as a producer are just trying to decide what to produce, or a society as a whole trying to decide what to produce. And those three questions are, and these are the ones in your notes for if you're starting a business. It was what to produce. Sorry, if you were starting a business, what would you produce? How would you produce it? And for whom would you produce it? So those are the three questions. And the question is there such thing as a free lunch? Well, in economics, we have something called Tenstaffel, which is there is no such thing as a free lunch. So if you were starting a business, answer in your notes, what would you produce, how would you produce it, and for whom would you produce it? Every single business that is started has to answer these three questions. And every single society that exists in the world has to answer these three questions. So if we're starting a business, what would we produce? Maybe we would produce shoes. How would we produce it? Well, we would buy a factory and we would hire workers, and we would produce it using these systems and in this way. And for whom would we produce it? Well, you might think everybody. You produce it for everybody. Well, maybe not necessarily. Maybe we're producing Jordans, and we're producing shoes for people who can afford Jordans or want to buy Jordans or have Jordans as part of their style. Okay, so you're not just going to produce for anybody. You're picking a target audience and you're producing for them. Okay, so if you're starting a business, answer those three questions. And then answer the questions of how does value change what you will produce in your business? And then how might the economic decisions of an island society differ from those of a desert society? So while you think about those, let me just talk for a second about, is there a such thing as a free lunch? And that's Tenstaffel. There is no such thing as a free lunch. And where do we get Tenstaffel? Well, why do we say there's no such thing as a free lunch? Is that talking about the lunch down in the cafeteria that you can go through and they can scan your ID and you can have it for free and you can go down to the table and eat it? No, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that if something has value, it is not and cannot be free. So we see this in politics a lot these days. We'll see a politician who will offer free things to people who vote for them. We are going to forgive student loans. We are going to provide Medicare for all. We're going to make college free. All these things are free. Well, nothing is actually free, and that is what TNSTAFL means, is that you can say we can have college that's free to the people who are attending, but it's not actually free. It has to be paid for by somebody. And if it doesn't have to be paid for, then it has no value. What is free in this world? The air that you breathe is free, but it has no value because you cannot express that in worth in terms of dollars and cents, unless it's special air in, for example, a scuba tank. Well, now that would have value in terms of dollars and cents. But everything that exists and everything that has value costs money. So if we limit our example to lunch, well, a free lunch would mean maybe it's free to you, but it's somebody's still paying for it. Okay, whether the school's paying for it or the school district's paying for it, or even if it's donated food from a farmer, now the farmer's paying for it, right? So somebody's paying for it because everything that has value costs money. There's also another example with TNSTAFL, which is that even if you take that free lunch, so one thing it means is that the lunch is never free. The other thing that it means is that if I provide free lunch for you, then that is an opportunity cost that we'll talk about in a couple of days, which is that you lose your opportunity to get something else instead. Okay, so that is what TNSTAFL is, and those are the three questions. What would you produce? How would you produce it? And for whom would you produce it? That every society must answer.
Concept in this video is TNSTAFL. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Because of scarcity, because of trade-off, and because we just don't have unlimited resources, nothing is ever free, even if it may appear free to you. So for example, you go into the store and it's a buy one, get one free. You're ecstatic because, yay, I just got a free meal. Now, it's not really free though. The company has to eat the cost. They still have to pay the farmers to grow the food. They still have to pay the chefs to cook it. They still have to pay the utilities to even just operate that establishment. That cost gets divvied up in other ways. While it may appear free for you, someone is paying for it. Nothing in this life is ever truly free. There's always a cost. You might not be the one that's directly paying it, but in the long run, it gets distributed in other areas. Maybe the prices for the food just generally are higher to compensate for those free days. Or at the same time, too, you're even just sacrificing your time to go to the restaurant. There's always a cost that is paid whenever we do anything. So